Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network. It just, we were saying, we just posted pictures, and it is amazing the amount of haters and the amount of disinformation that we're fighting in this election, isn't it? I mean, it's just literally, oh, look at all the pedophiles, look at blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just, you know, it has gotten, the level of vitriol has gotten unbelievable, hasn't it?
It really has, and to think that they're turning one of the most decent men in American politics, Joe Biden, right? He's just a good guy. Like, to try and turn him into this caricature of this evil pedophile, demented guy when, he's doing a great job. I think he's done, Stephanie, a lot better job than I ever anticipated as president.
Same.
It's really sad, but those are the stakes now in 2024 America.
Well, it's interesting you say that. The gaslighting really has been turned up to 11 because you're like, Trump's the guy with the creepy picture of his daughter on his lap and telling Howard Stern she's a piece of ass and if he'd be dating her if she wasn't his daughter. And you're right, but it becomes this like, oh, Biden showered with his daughter. All these just nonsense stories. Biden pooped his pants. Like, it literally is all gaslighting because, to both sides do it, I think. And it's insane, this election.
Yeah, but remember, I mean, fundamentally, Trump and MAGA has to live in a world of their own creation because they cannot run on anything that has to do with one stark second of reality because it's so disastrous and it's so disqualifying. But so they're forced to create this fantasy realm that just only exists in their pea brains because the conditions otherwise would be a landslide.
Fernand, Jody and I were talking about we happen to see one thing in this right wing, universe that happens because we were there. I don't know if you saw this clip. I think it was the New York Post clip. They tried to make it seem like Biden was confused and Obama had to help him off stage. No. Jody and I were there. He just put his arm around. They walked off stage. They're friends. He put his arm around him. They walked off stage together. He wasn't confused and needed Obama to help it. But this is the universe we're living in now, right? I mean, it just this is the kind of fight we're going to be fighting until November.
Well, it is because they have to turn Biden into literally a weekend at Bernie's incompetent dementia guy. And that's not who he is. I mean, we see him. He's active. He's engaged. He was just at the G7. Yeah. You saw what the New York Post did just a couple days ago. They tried to make it seem like he was wandering off when in reality he was watching a paraglider, land on the field. Yes.
He flew from the G7 through 9 time zones, and he was sharp as a tack on stage with Jimmy Kimmel and Barack Obama. We were there. Yeah.
No, I can't. I mean, I'm 48 years old. I mean, if I had to take up and keep the Biden pace, you'd have to carry me off the stage.
Yeah.
If I had to do that. I mean, the fact that he's doing it so with such a plum and grace in his 80s is remarkable and really a test to his stamina.
Yeah. Are you kidding? Jody and I were like. We're like, it doesn't start till 6:30. Oh man, that's past our bedtime.
That's late.
I loved one of the things Obama said to him on stage Saturday. He said, "At the best of presidency is a relay race. You take the baton and you run the race, and then you hand it to your successor. I take great pride in what the Biden administration has accomplished. It's a reminder you don't have to just vote against something in this election. We can take pride in affirming the extraordinary work that Joe has done." To your point, and I love, Biden or Obama did his thing. Don't boo, vote.
Yep.
People booed at, when he brought up stuff Trump Trump administration did or Supreme Court, and don't boo, vote. But it's the truth, right? Is that, and this. I mean, this is what I wanted to talk to you primarily as a pollster, is you've heard this, that the polls seem to always be wrong, right? And when real people vote in all these real elections, particularly post-Roe, Democrats are winning big. What's your take on that?
It's exactly right. I mean, I think, polls have a place. They kind of give you a sense. And I think the polls are accurate, Stephanie, in suggesting that the race is not a runaway, right? Like, Biden is not up like he was in 2020, 9 or 10 points at this stage of the campaign. Right. But I think they're clearly suggesting that the fundamentals of this race are leaning and trending in Biden's direction. I would much rather be in Biden's position if I were kind of neutral in terms of predicting the outcome of this race than where Trump is. And we see it over and over again, not just in the election results and the special election results, but Stephanie, the idea that there is a Republican voter who is less enthusiastic about voting for Trump again, that's real. I mean, It could be 10%, it could be 15%, but anything more than 5% is deadly to Trump's chances. So I do think that while, there are a lot of polls that have been weaponized and some that are put out there by partisan groups for partisan aims, Fox News, I would think the polls for the most part as being generally indicative of what we see, which is a close race.
Yeah. Well, to your point, you tweeted Donald Trump won this Ohio 6th congressional district by 29 points in 2020. Tonight, the Republican who won the special election by only 8 points is an Ohio senator who spent over $700,000. And Adam Kinzinger said, wow, Dems way overperform in Ohio special election. Yeah. So, that's what we keep saying, right? It's like the only thing that matters is real voters in real elections, not because, the other thing, talk to us about landlines, because that's the other thing that people say. We see so many, like, young people aren't going to vote for Biden, black people aren't going to vote for, and then you just feel like, I know a lot is for clicks and ratings, but talk to us about that.
Well, one of the things I know for a fact is like people under 30 don't answer the phone.
Right.
Like they don't engage in phone conversations. So it's tougher to get them on the phone to participate. So there's someone undercounted. But I mean, look, the point you just made earlier about that race in Ohio, a lot of Republicans are like, oh, well, the Democrats still lost the seat by 8 points. The problem is that overperformance, Stephanie, that's a pattern that we've seen in every race for the most part in America, whether it's in the bluest states or the reddest states. And if that is an indicator, a trend line, you're going to see that be a real problem. And that's partially why I think the Republicans are going overboard with this farce and fantasy of how Biden is falling apart, because they can't address the real fundamental issues, which show that there is this building movement against them, and you see it in every race across the country.
Yeah. You also, we were talking about the debate earlier, Fernand, and you tweeted, if you're Trump's campaign manager and you've watched him recently on the stump and in interviews, sounding and acting increasingly erratic and unhinged, would you actually allow him to debate President Biden on June 27th? I think we're all guessing he's going to chicken out somehow. But I mean, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, listen, if you and I were running his campaign, meaning Trump's, and it was our objective to force him to win, would you put him in that scenario where the Biden campaign completely outflanked him? I mean, that was a brilliant, maybe the best thing they've done in the campaign so far was get him to agree, Stephanie, to those terms in the debate. Only 2 debates, no audience, no third-party candidates, only 1 moderator or 2. They're going to do it in CNN and those conditions are death. And the secret is what the Biden campaign, I think, did. This hasn't really been talked about. They recreated the conditions of the trial, where a lot of Trump's shenanigans don't work because you've got a judge, you've got a jury,
right?
And you see that Trump, who is much worse cognitively than he was in 2020, let alone 2016.
Yeah,
I would never let him on the stage. I think that's going to be death.
CEOs, this meeting of CEOs, they're all Trump fans. Basically, they want the tax cuts, and they all literally, to a person, said he doesn't know what he's talking about on any subject. Like that's the again, the emperor has no clothes.
Absolutely, and if you're the Biden campaign, you want to give Trump. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, we shouldn't platform him." He's a convicted felon, and all that stuff is true. He's an insurrectionist traitor. But the more that you see him, especially in a direct contrast with the expectations they've created for Biden. Again, they want you to think Biden's going to go out there and Obama's going to have to escort him on stage and he's able to get 2 words out when in reality, you saw it, you and Jody saw it last night. Biden's actually in really good shape.
Yeah.
So the expectations are low for Biden. They're extremely high for Trump, and you want that contrast to happen. So I'm really looking forward to the debate, and I hope Trump goes for no other reason than I think it's going to be a big problem for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought the other thing, Biden was funny. I was reading some coverage of the event, Fernand, that Jody and I were at. But Biden said at one point, remember the pandemic? Trump said, don't worry, just inject a little bleach. It worked for him, the color of his hair. Jimmy Kimmel recalled the toilet paper shortage in the initial weeks of the pandemic. He said he promised he would make America great again. The next thing you know, we're wiping ourselves with envelopes, prompting Obama to say, is that how you handled it, Jimmy? It was just a sharp, funny conversation. Kimmel mentioned, but this was the serious part. He mentioned his young son, Billy, who needed 3 open heart surgeries because of a congenital birth defect. effect and asked why Republicans wanted to overturn the Affordable Care Act. So there was some talk about that, and Biden said, look, at this guy started it. I expanded it. Here's the deal. The fact is these guys don't seem to care. It's about saving the country money. He turned to Obama and said, it has your name on it, which, Obama said he's happy about. But, I mean, that is a really serious point, that they're running on taking health care away from millions of people.
Listen, if there's one slight criticism or maybe tough love constructive feedback I'd give to the Biden campaign is this. Stephanie, they have an extraordinary story to tell. I'm just not sure they're telling it enough. Because when I look at the polls, if you ask people, can you name one accomplishment of the Biden administration? Number one, as you just alluded to, there have been dozens of historic accomplishments in this presidency.
Yeah.
Most people just don't know the full story of everything he's done. I was not expecting this degree of greatness in a first term for President Biden. He hasn't been a good president, Stephanie. He has been a historically great
Historically great. Yeah. I said that the other day. I said this list is too long to read on the air. It's too boring, But one more funny moment. Kimmel noted after one of his son's surgeries, Biden sent a card and a stuffed animal that looked like Biden's German Shepherd Commander. He said, unfortunately, little Commander bit Billy's toe off, so he needs more health care. Fortunately, he's covered. But,
that guy, right?
Biden, in a serious moment, Biden noted the next president is likely to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices. He said the idea, if he's reelected, he's going to appoint 2 more flying flags upside down justices.
That got a good laugh.
Yeah, right. And then Obama said Joe Biden will be reelected president of the United States. Kamala Harris will be reelected vice president. And Jimmy Kimmel will be able to do his show. And I'll be able to do what ex-presidents are supposed to do, which is not hang out with Jimmy Kimmel. Let's get to work. It was just a great night. And the whole that there's no enthusiasm for Biden, I think is just bull,
Oh, I agree. And I think, part of this is after the national trauma of the 4 years of the Trump presidency, where all of us were really hanging on almost daily, following politics, even myself who works in politics, it got to the point where it was just unhealthy. I think a lot of people, appropriately, Stephanie, they took a couple of years off. Even they didn't want to hear anything. They don't want to follow the politics. But as we get closer now, and that choice is clear, the choice between reelecting a great president who's done a great job and who's going to continue to move the country forward, or not just bring Trump back, but end our democracy. Those are the stakes. I know it sounds hyperbolic, but it's the facts. I think people are going to enthusiastically come out for Biden in November.
Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner wherever you generally get your podcasts.